let me introduce
is Eric on the phone?
Yeah, let me go to the phone. So Eric joined, Lawrence has joined, and I believe they both can see the GoToMeeting screen. John Omblet, who is Director of Technical Services for Modulo, who you know, will be providing the demo. We also have on mute on silent Portia Mills, who is Product Market Manager for Modulo. And then in a few minutes, Steve Gant, who's the new Managing Director for North America, who you all met, will be joining as well. But he'll probably be silent when he joins, so it's not to interrupt. So that's who we have on the line. Anybody that I missed? Okay, good. So what we were hoping to do.
Couple of things before you get going. One, don't spend a lot of time on the slides. This is not the demo, not the slides. Don't say okay a lot because we're on mute typing furiously and we don't want to have to come off mute to respond to okay. We will interrupt if we have questions. We are not shy about that, as you know.
Okay, how would you feel about holding questions to the end? Because we will save 10 minutes at the end. We want to make sure we get through all the use.
You know, unfortunately, when we have a question, it's usually, could you go back a screen? I didn't see that.
Okay, so John, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. So we've timed this to leave about 10 minutes Q&A, give or take, you know, depending on how much we have during the session. And so, yeah, we're going to jump right in. We know you've seen a lot of demos, just 1 minute on company orientation, and then jump right into your 6 use cases. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, let's go.
Okay, just to reset your brain, we are Modulo, Risk Manager. Our software has been around for 12 years. The company has been around for 27 years. We have almost 400 employees, almost 650 clients worldwide. We have offices in Brazil, US, EMEA, in UK, and APAC in India. And we are specialized in those solutions. We break them down in 3 areas. Of course, today we're going to be talking about IT risk management. We're calling IT risk and security. And there will be several solutions as part of the demo, like vendor risk management, policy management, risk management. And also, even though I know that the integration is not part of the plan as well, we're just going to mention if we get extra points for that, it's good. Otherwise, I'm not going to spend much time on vulnerability and all the other cases that were dropped from IT risk management. I'll be following your agenda, starting with the first use case, asset and entity management, followed by all the others. And I will highlight when I'm switching from one to the other. I also pre-open all the screens to facilitate the navigation through all the use cases, and I'll be showing the screen that I feel that better represents your questions about that specific topic. But as you said, if you have questions, if you didn't notice that particular feature, feel free to interrupt me. So let's get started with asset and entity management. So the first screen that I want to show you is one of the most common representation of our asset management results. So after we load all the assets, which you can see here in the bottom of the screen, we like to do an organization mapping. And we have 2 layers that we can use any way we want. The most common way to use is mapping to applications and to business process, or what we call a tactical business process and a strategic business process. Another representation, especially for the case of vendor management, is where we have all the vendors, which is also one type of assets for us, which application or department that they support, and again, the strategic business process that they are connected to. In this representation, you can see details about all the connections. You can apply filters. You can have different types of indexes that you want to see in this view. As well, you can have different areas in the system that you jump in this screen. So now how we build that? So we have the option to tag the asset or categorize in several categories. We call it asset types. And that's a new feature since the last demo. Now we can build additional types. In the past, we used to have those 4 that are the out-of-the-box one. they're represented by the modulo source here, author, and you can create additional ones. So I can create, for instance, an automobile or a car type of asset, put a description here, and I can pick an icon for that. So actually there are a few ways that we can represent. I'm going to show later how this affects, but it's a new type. And for each of the types, I can have additional layer of metadata. So now moving back to the business components, I have few options that I can categorize my business components as well. I can create folders, different types, and in each of them I can do the mappings. So this now is the top layer, the strategic level, and I did a mapping to the middle layer. So I can do another mapping here and pick one of the organization systems and add this mapping. I can also go in the bottom layer and map upstream or downstream, map to the assets, or map to the strategic. So of course, when you have hundreds or thousands of those assets, there is another way that we can do this mapping. We can do this mapping through an Excel. So I can load all those mappings on a matrix like this, where I have access when I want to establish the mapping. And we can do those mappings through APIs as well. I'm going to show in a minute how. So another way to represent our assets is with what we call perimeters. They work like Windows folders, and inside of them you can have several assets. You can now drag and drop them around. Just 1 second here.
You will no longer hear beeps until someone else joins the conference.
Okay, so you can move them around, and as you can
see, we are all grateful.
Thank you.
Exactly.
So you can see that I have metadata associated with vendors that are different from metadata associated with an application, which are different from an employee. So the set of attributes associated with each vendor or to each asset can be any set. So can be different, and it supports all the reports, of course, and the filtering. So continuing that, this is how I create a new metadata. So I can go an asset here and list all the ones. Some of them we call properties, are the ones that we provide out of the box, and the additional ones are attributes. And I can create an attachment, a date, an email, a web link, list of options, numbers, mode choice, relationship, and the relationship is the most common one. I can correlate this to any other field in our database. So I can pick, for instance, I want to cross-reference an asset with an asset. Suppose you have a VM that's inside of a hardware and you have multiple operating systems, you can do that kind of relationship. I can relate to a perimeter or multiple perimeters. I can relate with people to have the responsible, the deputy, or the second responsible, or many layers of mappings to the business components for different type of views. I can pick an asset here, and now, of course, I have to remap. This is also the variable that's going to our database that helps you if you want to connect an external report, like the car type of asset that I created is also available here. I can make this connection now, and now I have a new type on the car type of asset. I can also, as I mentioned, export the infrastructure, all the organization. That's the Excel file that I was showing. And as you can see, you have a tab for all the assets. I have a tab to which perimeter they're going to, name, all the combo box, everything that you create is mirror on the Excel. So if you create drop downs, if you create multi-choice, they will be all going to Excel, date, and you can do mass import, including to the controls that you want to do the assessment for that particular asset component. Same thing for the business components. We have all the layer of metadata for business component that we are exploring a lot, especially on the business continuity, the associations that I mentioned, and users. For vendor management, that's very powerful. we heard from some clients that they want to do an assessment on hundreds of thousands of vendors and they don't want to manage the access control. So we have two options. We can load straight from the list all the emails from the vendors, send it out a survey, collect the answers, just leave that survey with a hash to unique identify each of the links. Once the results come in, we can also track all the remediation status and give access through a username and password if you want or not. So this is actually optional. Okay, moving forward in the asset management. The next part that I want to show you is we can integrate. So I can bring users and I can bring assets from external sources. In this example, let me show another one here. I can import from AD and it brings all the list of users, all the list of assets, but we have clients that we brought all the vendors from SAP. We can have any external source we want. Basically, we say what type of assets we're going to import and the rules for importing, which is better explaining on the Qualys, for example. I can set rules like this is an AIX OS. I want to type a list of additional manual controls like backup procedures, what's the data classification related to AIX. So this kind of mapping add manual controls that I'm going to demo later on the control assessment to the same asset that we can also import the vulnerabilities. And just to summarize, this is one of the outputs. So beside that mapping, we also have dashboards that shows how many vendors in each of the categories to show that the metadata can be used in the dashboards, what type of operating system running, what type of database is running. So all the metadata is available for reporting. And as well the location. So if you type, if you pinpoint a vendor in a map, you can have all the demographics about that vendor, which assessments we perform, and what's the risk score color-coded with red, yellow, green, blue, and orange. So basically, all those features are configurable, but the mappings, especially for vendor management, if you want to know if something is going wrong, in Colorado, they have a heavy storm over there. You want to see which vendors might be affected. That's a good output to look in this kind of problem. Okay, this concludes the asset management part. I'm moving to the next one, which is what's the name again?
Risk management and KRI.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Leslie. So I would start with just give you an idea how we capture, what objects do we use to do the risk assessment. And we have several. We have in the higher level what we call authoritative documents, which tracks all the authoritative documents like PCI, HIPAA, SOX, or FFIEC. So we have over 186 sources like state laws that you can use for mappings. I'm going to show it later on the policy management, but just to making the point that we have those sources here. We also have the control level, which we call it the knowledge bases. And the knowledge bases are more granular control, like each individual check of the SIG or the AUPs that we use for vendor management. So as you can see, the SIG version 7, it's already in here. We broke them apart in all the tabs. So we have the SIG-like privacy. So for each vendor, we can assign either a full SIG or a subset. It helps also which area in the company will be answering those questions. And in addition to that, just to mention, we have a few other tables that we can use. We have the list of threats. We have threat sources. Yes, but we don't charge extra for that, and it's included in the product, yes. So continue here, we have list of threats. We also provide the out-of-the-box, which are based on the ISO 27705, but we also have the option to create additional threats, and it can be mapped to each individual control. So it helps to sort the findings at the end. We also have the option to manage multiple projects at a time. So I can do a PCI assessment, I can do an ISO assessment, I can do a SAP application review. Many projects can be running at the same time, each one with their own scope and each one with their own project managers. So as you can see here, I can assign different levels for the leader, substitute leader, and mainly what I'm doing here is setting the scope. You saw how we capture everything, but for each assessment, we're probably going to slice, a percentage of the vendor in a specific location, or break in waves. Especially for a vendor management case, we know that's much effective if we do assessment by the time that the vendor is coming in. So as part of the procurement process, so I can have a project for ongoing vendors, and I can have a separate project to target the legacy vendors that are already under contract. So I just scope here which assets will be part of the assessment, and I can pick which controls am I going to using for those assets. Then the way that we collect the data, I know that I'm going to show this in the end. I just want to make the point here that we have the option to use surveys. The surveys are very flexible. I can do shrink and contract, like the gated questions that the SIG have. So here I'm in question number 1. If I say no, I'm going to question number 5. If I say yes, I will expand to additional questions about that topic. I can also capture comments, I can capture files, and I can enforce them. If it's a no, you must provide a comment. If it's a yes, you must provide an evidence file. So you can enforce all those conditions. This is an example that we are using a lot of for vendor management. Show it here on page 1. Question. Okay. So basically, I will ask demographics about the vendor, all the areas that they support, and for this large customer, it's very important which business process they are supporting as well. This interview can be exported and imported in Excel. So if you are offline, you can download, do everything on Excel, and then import it back. If you are more on the audit view, or if you want to do a more not a control self-assessment, you want to do an assessment with test plans, you have this also view where you can have more information about the control. So this is support. I'm doing an ISO assessment, and I want to have more information. I want to see which controls. Go ahead. Nothing? Okay. So you can have details about what you're doing the assessment on. It has why this control is important, the recommendation in case this control is not in place, the mapping to the threats, if you remember, the references, an ISO, COVID, and other cross mappings that we have. So it gives you additional information and also give you the option to balance the risk. So the default option is a low risk, low severity. What I'm going to do is say, no, for this particular client, it's very high. So I can adjust the risk score during the assessment, and I can also add comments and attach files in this view as well. So moving forward, just to make the point, I'm not going to spend much time here. We can do the automated collectors, and you can check like password size, all the things that the configuration management solutions do, as well the scanners. We talk OVO, CVE, CCE, so we have all these options in the system as well. The other part is the vulnerability. This part we do through the integration, so you can import vulnerabilities, you can do multiple assessments, comparisons, CVS, all this good stuff. Moving forward. On the KRIs, I can represent in this tree map where I can define the size of the box and the color schema of the two variables. Very similar, but we like this view better in terms of the heat map. And from this view, you have the option of mouse over to represent the scoring as well. I can click and go straight to the KRI event and see the progress in there. So the KRI also support Go ahead.
Yeah, could you actually please, everybody uses this term differently. Could you define it, how it's used in the product?
Okay, the KRI is a library of entries that I can define workflow rules for alerts. So suppose I have a risk event, and this risk event could be like we can go, well, let me go on more an IT event, for instance. We have the risk of not supporting new applications that are coming on board because our platform is running on a Windows XP. So every time you have a new procurement process or something that will require Internet Explorer 9 that's only available on a Windows 8 or a Windows 7, you have to upgrade. So I can use that as an example, and I can cross map to risks, and I can have what's going to be the potential impact. So basically are entries on the system that are going to monitor those entries, and are going to aggregate to give a specific alert when it goes above a certain threshold.
So I understood all of that, but do me a favor, give me that one line. When I said please define KRI, you said something and I wanted to write it down.
Okay.
What's the definition of KRI in your product?
Entries in our workflow that will be aggregated to provide alerts and aggregated risk score connected to risks.
Okay, I wrote that down mostly. Could somebody send that to me?
Yes, I can.
Now,
Yes.
wait, who said they got it?
Eric, I'll text it to you. You can tell me.
What do you take, shorthand? Like a mutant. Anyway, yes, please.
There will be typos.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So just to demonstrate, I can do chains here, and I have rules working in the back end. So if I change a particular region, or if I change a particular financial impact, it will affect directly the properties in here. And I assign automatic the CFO because it went above 1 million. It changed the person on that region. All those things work. And I'm going to demonstrate how does it work in the configuration part in the incident management. But the KRI's process also benefit from those workflow rules. And the last one, I already showed, so I can do those chains and this affects that, and that's it. Now going to the next one, which is exception management. So in exception management, I'm going to start explaining the workflow. So workflow is the module in the system when we can have events, and events could be anything. Like I have risk events, which are the results of the assessment. So suppose we did the PCI assessment, the vendor management, the vendor doesn't have specific controls in place, answer that they don't have a security policy, I can push that to the workflow to monitor remediation and exceptions. So they land in here. Just to give an idea, you have several types of events. Each one of them, they have their own metadata that you can use for filtering and categorization. And you also benefit from the view, the tree map view. So this is more IT centric. So I did assessments. I can color code all the results from the risk assessment. And they land in here, and I can track progress. So I can see what they are doing at any given time, who did what, and I can also do, of course, the access control to not let them close the event or do the segregation of duties. Someone update the status until they are ready to be assessed again, and once the auditor or the IT person validates the finding, they can close. I can do associations, and that's very important. Let me show you. Here there is one associated, but I have another one that I'm going to do from scratch to show that we map all the three-layer mapping. Show here. So as you can see, this one is in blank. I have no assets. Oh, actually I do. So let me remove them. So I'm going to remove all the assets in here. And this particular incident is affecting finance. So I want to associate with finance now. List finance, and I want to include all the associated assets, and I want to include all the business components. So as you can see, I got the finance on the strategic level, all the middle layer. And if I go to assets, I got all the assets that are connected to that particular one, all the SAP findings, all the vendors, everything. And this is all coming from this mapping here. So when you have a finding, we leverage all those mappings to the workflow as well, and then you can report how many findings we have in this particular strategic business process, how many findings we have in that application. So everything is connected. So the other part that I mentioned is the workflow rules. So as I mentioned, I have the KPIs, KRIs here, and as well, I can show how I can do for the approval for policy later on. So I can edit the condition. What's the trigger? What's going to initiate either the alert or a change? So I said, okay, policy revision will be revised, and then I want to see the conditions. What I'm doing is I'm changing the coordinator, the policy approval group. So when it's ready to be revised, I will add that group, and this I can get from AD if I want. As part of the revision, they get emails, they can access that now, and they can do the revision. Other types of notifications that I can do. So I can do notification on email. So who will receive that could be a group. Again, it can come from the AD, can be a person, can be a role. So person is actually someone that doesn't have access to the system. It's just an email that I will send outside of the list of users just to explain what's happening. I can send copies. I can configure all the message in HTML, preview, all this good thing. And the important part is this. I can insert all the metadata from the system as a variable on my email, saying when it's due, when it's past due, how much time do you have, escalation, all that I can use with those variables here. And the second type of change is like updating a field. So I can pick which field I want to change. I want to change, for instance, the progress or the policy revision. And it's going to give you what are the options on that field, and I want to make that pending revision now. So I will change the status of that particular field to pending revision and add the policy management group. So that's what I did. Okay, so now this already show you mapping. This is a real case. A client sent us a list of their exception process, and we mirror exactly in here. So as you can see, they have their own score, they have their own things in terms of scoping, they have their target data for assessment, what sector would be affected. They give us an Excel, and we mirror exactly in the system. And we added all those roles to trigger. If it's physical, middleware, database, which areas should be included, who gets the notification. So that's exactly their process running. So we have the option, as you can see, to have different tabs. Each tabs can have their own set of fields, and you have all the parts of access control and default values. So I learned from you, Paul, if you remember I think it was like 2 years ago when we had that session. Oh, everything is a metadata, very configurable. We're doing that now. It's very configurable. Everything can be metadata on top of the out-of-the-box solutions. And of course, that's also affected by integration. So we have cases that we read like one client's doing all the access approval process and they have integration with SAP. We can push a change on the SAP rule for an approval. We can get change from SAP when people leave the company, when people change areas and adjust the groups. So all those things work as well for integration. In this example, I'm using the integration with Qualys ticketing system, but basically it's the same with Remedy or any other remediation ticket. We exchange data and update status in the workflow events. That's the incident and exception management. Now I'm moving to reporting and dashboarding. So 1 second here. Get the right screen. Okay, so starting with our dashboard, the one that you saw, just to continue the flow. We also have the view using the authoritative documents. Remember, we have the ISO, the COVID, and you can do drill downs in different levels for that particular requirement, PCI, and you can see the level, either the level of risk or the compliance level with different standards. Have here PCI as well, which you can drill down and get all the domains for PCI. We have dashboards that we can use for the KRIs, how many the risk scores are coming from the asset types. I can have the ones with the highest risk index on the asset level. I can have then on the strategic level. So all those three levels of mappings.
What's your underlying reporting platform?
This one is using the Dev Express, but it's only at the code level. So it's not like any report generation yet, but it's the Dev Express. Are you familiar with that?
I am not. But
I can show you here. That's the Dev Express.
Eric, are you guys familiar with Dev Express?
So this is all the kinds.
Does this have to be licensed separately?
No, that's included in our system. We license with them, and we have the rights to resell it.
Okay, and that's pretty standard across everybody. I was just curious what your underlying platform is. Thanks.
Not a problem. And where was I? So here, and I can do the drill downs. So the Dev Express is just the exhibition layer. It's all the coding, the cubes, and everything we did ourselves. So all the mappings. So we can do the drill downs in different layers. It's a large. And all this you can export to Excel as well. When it's loading here, let me show another one. So we have the stack bars as well. You can show how many are implemented, not implemented. I can do aggregation with vulnerability or compliance. Any of those data points I can aggregate any way I want. I also can show for the application assessment, what's the scoring. So PeopleSoft, Salesforce, that's a very common use case. Several clients do assessments on their applications. And you can see under PeopleSoft what are the questions that we ask, and you can see the groupings, you can see all the options. So we did authentication and testing. Let's see what controls did we use for authentication testing and testing credentials. So all the controls that were tested, this can be exported to Excel.
Now, do you have the ability to also import back? So, for example, if somebody wants to do some data manipulation or in another tool, and they want to be able to include some of that in the reporting, and they want to do the visualization here, can they pull it back in?
Definitely, in two ways. One way, they bring the data in, and they can do all the analytics and harmonization, especially with our risk score. That's one way to go. Second way, which I was going to show you here, we can go to external sources and not even bring the data. So if you want to go to an external Oracle, SQL, external data sources, we just put the query and they benefit from all the report engine. Okay, another way to report is with those tasks. We can do tasks to import data as well and to export SQL queries. So we build the queries and we can do all the data import and export through standard tasks. So you add the queries, and that's for if you want to, for instance, multiple screenshots of your assessment, and you want to take like one copy of your database every day and show all the trends, we can do that as well. So we can have multiple views in our system at any given time to do trends as well. Another way to see, it's with the Google Maps. One more time, just quickly here. We can see, of course, tables that we can do all the types of combinations. So we can add columns, remove columns, It works like a visualization of an Excel, and all those you can apply filters here as well. Which ones, high risk, medium risk, empty. All those screens you can export to Excel, PDF, and RTF. We have our report editor, so I can create a report. I can schedule to send those reports every day. And on the report editor, I have out-of-the-box templates that I can use. They can customize their logos. They can customize their view. Timeout is, sorry. I left this open for much time. But I can show you the editor here. Okay. This is another part that you can edit in the system. So you can, as you can see, change all the verbiage. All those things between parentheses here are the variables in the system that you can edit, and all the charts you can edit as well. So I can go here, run the wizard, pick a pie chart, multiple series, and build your own report. This is very powerful. This is new as well, and you can do any type of those charts with multiple series, or define the appearance, the palette. It's very configurable. We can mirror any type of report that they are doing on a Word today.
Is this a part of the tool? Because I noticed you switched applications.
It is. We call it a report editor. It's an executable that downloads the files from the system. So I go here and reports, manage templates. I can export the template, and then I open on that executable, configure, and import it back. Then I can go ahead.
Did I see text generation capability there where you could have forms and then insert things into the form?
Definitely, yes.
Sort of mail merge that?
Yep. So all those tabs, pictures. We also did a project that they did assessments on data center. They take pictures of all the problems, and on the report comes with all the pictures with the notes, and it's the detailed report about all the assessment. One click, everything was collected with a mobile app, and then they show all the reports in one PDF. And now I want to show you a little bit of our mobile capabilities, exactly for reporting. Show you here. This is what you're seeing now. It's my iPad. I'm running on my iPad, and we have apps for display information. So this one that I want to show was an assessment that we did for a bank, Itaú. It's a big bank in Brazil. So I can pick here, and it has all their branches, their ATMs. Sorry for a little bit of Portuguese here, but you can click, get the relevance of that particular agents, what the time that they open and close. And the beauty of this is you can overlay multiple layers of data. I can combine this one with incidents that happen in that area, frauds, or any type of other, and combine to see which are the branches that have multiple cases or multiple losses, and what was the risk assessment score. So that's the powerful, the nice feature about this view. Another example that I want to show you is a project that we did for a pharma assessment, a risk assessment on their installations. Remove those and pick here. I can also do all the layers if I want to. I can have additional layers. I'm going to show this in a minute, but the one that I want to show you first is this. So we did an assessment on their process to release new drugs on the market. And the risk assessment, as you can see, RISCO is like the risk index and the compliance index, and those are the products they are releasing on the market. We did a national assessment of them, and basically we got a questionnaire like that. We collected all the risk scores, all the metrics, and we can display in a view like this. Another thing that we do for project management is this one that we're doing for the World Cup, that we are monitoring the progress of updating the stadium. So this is the actual stadium. This is the stadium, how it's gonna be after all the change. And as you can see, this is a dashboard from risk management showing the progress. This is a project view, how far they are on the process, and we are monitoring how much they are spending and how much it was budget for, and all the risks of going over budget or delay and then miss the World Cup. And the last one that I want to show you is another one that we did in London during the Olympic Games, that we tapped in all their security cameras. It's just to show that we have the capability. So those are all their security cameras in London, and you can pick a location and you can get a real-time feed. As you can see with the time change, it happened like 1 minute ago. We took this screenshot for that street. So basically that's how we set up, but we can collect feeds just to demonstrate that we have the capability to get real-time feeds for an external sources and present in this application. Okay, moving the iPad aside, let's continue to the next use case, which is policy management, right? So if I went to, okay,
That's correct.
this one we did already. Okay, so the policy management, would you like to start with the policy module, where we present the policy? It's also integrated with AD, so when the person clicks on this link, it will sort only the policies that apply to that person. They can see the policy as a whole, like as a PDF document. They can download and read it, or they can break the policy apart in statements, like I have here, my access control policy. We do all the versioning, and if we do in this way, the mapping is more granular. We can go on each specific statement and do the mapping. And that's the advantage of doing this format. We can also be exported in PDF or RTF. So on top of the presentation layer, we have the configuration part. That's part of authoritative documents. I have that access control policy here, and I can edit all the mappings. So I have some of the metadata to categorize that policy, but I have all these statements here, and I can do the mapping, like for instance, security policy with PCI, state of Vermont. I can do HIPAA, all the cross mappings. I can do the search here, or I can load those mappings directly from Excel. I can also present a report that shows the cross mapping of that policy with COVID 4.1, for instance, and then you can see if they are covering everything that COVID requires or everything that PCI requires. They can have the mapping results and see statements. So on the right is the policy requirement, the COVID requirements, and on the left is the policy names. Okay, now talking about the flows. So we also use the workflow to create the flows. I create the policy management workflow, and in the policy management workflow, I can pick like how many layers of approval I want. I pick one for vaccine policy approval. You can go in progress and see at each step of the process when it was created, what was the first draft attached. You can make the correction. Of course, this is PDF. It's more for the approval. That's the final one. But we can store a Word file. They can do the revision process, upload new versions, and we track all the versions who did on any time, the progress as well. And then we have all the relationships. We can correlate to other events for like different layers of approval. And of course, the custom attributes and tabs are also applied here. Let me show you a little bit how we do those tabs. I go to administration. I want to do a new event layout. And doing a new event layout, I can do on the risk, for instance. And I can create new tabs. I can assign what's the level of access on that tab for all the roles and all the profiles in the system. I can see which are default values. So the title is going to be policy always or something. The description, the default status, as you can see, saves automatic. I can predefine coordinators and things like that. Otherwise, they will be updated later. And for each tab, I can hide the tab if it's a default one they don't want to use. Like the Google Map doesn't apply. I don't want to have that tab, or I want to copy and have two views, one location for one approval process and another for another thing. So it's very flexible. All the tabs can be fully configurable. And policy, and then basically I can have like approved, not approved, and when I do that, all the workflow rules kicks in to do the alerts and notifications. It was quick. Then going to the last one, which we talked a little bit, is the surveys. So you saw in the beginning how we build how the surveys look like after they were created, but we can create surveys here. I can create surveys from scratch, a compliance or a risk, or I can preset, like suppose I have the SIG and I want to do a survey that's a subset of the SIG. I can go here, filter by the SIG, pick the one that I want, and make a copy of this one and edit that one. I can also do an edit or of ISO or PCI as the authoritative document, and it pre-creates things for you to speed up the process. Or you can copy from one of our existing surveys. Everything is versioned, and you can publish that. So let's pick one just to show how it works. You have two layers. You have the question layers where you build your questions, and of course the questions could be a file upload, text, number, date, list of options, a particular image or description. You can have multiple pages, and then you build the roles. And the roles works in two ways. One, control roles. If I answer question 1, do you have a policy? How does it affect the PCI control related to that policy? That's how we do the mapping between surveys and controls. Or I can have a question rule that will expand and shrink additional questions, like the gated questions. I'm going to ask you, do you provide hosting services as a vendor? If they say no, I would drop all the tab about the hosting services questions, what type of data center they have, all that, to take all that out, and I move to the next topic. And basically I can go on a very simple or a complex one, and it's basically works on if conditions. If answer 5 equals to whatever, then question is whatever. And it also works like a firewall. I can have the order of execution. What's the first one to be executed? What's the second one in the order? And once I build that, I can go back and see how they will look like. So for instance, let me get this one, compliance policy survey, preview. I want to have the yes and no confirmation, and that's gonna how they will look like. And this is an example how we are monitoring the survey. So I send it out the SIG to several vendors. They are answering. I can monitor the completion. I can have steps in a workflow. I send to a reviewer. Like I send to the vendor answered the questions. I get it back. I send to the relationship manager to validate if that vendor is not lying. And I can see the two views, the vendor view, the reviewer view, and monitor all those steps. This is just how the SIG questionnaire looks like. And at this point, let me just make sure I showed everything. Business process mapping. Yes. So now we have 10 minutes for additional questions if you have any.
demo was pretty darn good. Covered everything that we asked for. I don't have any questions.
No questions from here either.
You implied that you were able to transmit the questionnaires to outside parties, like vendors.
Yes.
Are they then able to do intra-organization delegation with them?
If we use, go ahead.
And the second question, what happens when they realize that they need to answer a portion of the questionnaire more than once? For example, like for more than one physical site.
Good questions. So the way that's more effective for us, it's the way that I told you, that we are not authenticating the assessment. And if we don't do that, it's as easy as forward the email. So I send the question to you, and you are the account manager on the vendor side. And you don't know some of the questions. You answer the ones that you know, you save, you forward to someone else, they answer additional ones, they save. And then after all this, and people can answer in parallel, I can target a group of people, 10 people get the same email, and they will be uploading documents, doing all that. When they submit, I can do a final validation to another person. Okay, this is the aggregated version of everyone. Are you fine with all of them? Do you want to change anything and submit as a final? Then they submit. So that's the easiest way to address what you said. You didn't address the right person, they just forward the email. And the second one, that one is usually with the relationship manager. If they have a gated question, I can do a gated question like, how many data centers do you support? If it's more than one, they answer that, and then the relationship manager will get an alert or something that they have to issue another copy of the data center questions for the additional one. Or we did for one, but that was a very complex one, took us a lot of time. We preset like up to 9 copies of the same question, and when they answer someone, we will expand additional questions that were hidden in the main template, just to support what you said, additional questions, additional copies of the same question.
So when you email them out, are you emailing an offline document or a link?
A link. Then they click and they land in a page in our system.
Okay, and then how are they authenticated back?
That's the point. There are 2 ways. Either I remove the authentication and the authentication is just on the hash. Let me show you here. Or I enforce with access control, and I have to request a password and a username. Let me show you here. And then we can use AD, but vendors usually are not an AD. They want to do a quick assessment, and that's why just to show that secure is like, if they upload a file and somebody hack the system and get access to that link, they will not be able to download what was uploaded. They can only delete. And this is only available, when they start to the end of the submission for maybe a couple days or a couple hours. So we never had a problem. But of course, we agree with the client that there is a risk of someone, stole or get access to. So this is the token that I'm talking about. So this is the hash that's valid just for a certain time for that specific email.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Lawrence and Paul?
I'm good.
Yep.
Is there any part that you feel that I didn't demonstrate all the capabilities that you're expecting? Maybe you give me more 5 minutes to demonstrate this again, or do you feel that I'm good?
Unnecessary. I think it's good. We've seen everything we need to see. Plus, we're all, somewhat familiar. So
good.
Yeah, no, good demo. We really appreciate how tight it was and how you went through everything. And thank you very much. We will be in touch as the process progresses.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.